Welcome everyone to episode 177 of the JSB Street Fighter 6 podcast. I am your host Rob, aka Zen. Joining me, the only other person in this call, Drew. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing all right. How about yourself, Rob?
I'm doing okay. We are men down, as it were. We are the only people operating this ship. I am on the controls. Drew is on lookout. We're probably gonna crash into some random podcast island, but we're gonna try our best. We're gonna try our best today. Back after a pretty long break. It's been like 3 weeks, so hopefully that gave both of us some time to play some video games, some video juegos, and chat about them. I know one very important game dropped during the downtime that we'll definitely get into. But some quick housekeeping stuff, right? This being the first episode we're back in a while, we'd like to announce that we are moving the podcast to a bi-weekly release schedule. So it'll be every 2 weeks, right? Figure that gives everybody a little bit more time to do things, right? We're all working adults and trying to fit things in can be kind of difficult, right? Time is
Life is exhausting.
Life can be very exhausting. So figure moving to the 2 week schedule probably does better for everyone. And I think it'll be a pretty good and healthy move. So that's that. I did record the JSB Anime Cast earlier today. So if you're listening to this, the new episode will be out on the YouTube channel. We covered the anime called My Life as a Villainess. It is an isekai harem picked by one Asher, which is two genres that I am not known for liking. Same with Jenny, the other host of that podcast. Did we like it? You know, you have to tune in to find out. It does have a very interesting premise, I'll say that. So if anything could have hooked me, it would be this one. So definitely give that a look-see. So with some of the housekeeping stuff out of the way, I think we should talk about some video games. Are we just gonna jump right into Street Fighter 6, or have you done anything else? What is this show going to be?
Well, okay, so I think the big one is Street Fighter, but I have played some other stuff.
Okay,
still playing Octopath.
Still trudging along.
Trudging is not accurate. I really like that game.
Yeah,
I've just been stonewalled by Street Fighter 6. Well, traveling in Street Fighter 6. Originally, my plan had been to beat this game this week before Street Fighter 6 dropped. However, my uncle at Capcom got me a copy of Street Fighter 6 early, and that did not happen. I don't have anything new to add about Octopath right now that I haven't already stated before. I really love that game. It's definitely on my game of the year candidate list. I think that game is incredible. It's amazing how much they improved from the original. I'll have a final report once I finally beat that game, but still have not beat it. When I was traveling though, I did start Zelda Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah. We're no longer Tears of the Redacted. We can talk a little bit.
We can talk a little bit. I haven't gotten too far into it, partly because I wanted to beat Octopath before I really dug into it. The other part is Street Fighter 6, and the other part is that game overwhelms me.
It's a lot.
I don't even, much like the game, I don't even know where to start.
Mm-hmm. Are you still in the early areas, or have you finished what you feel is the tutorial?
Well, I got through the tutorial area. Okay. I am in the greater area of Hyrule.
Okay, so you have touchdown. You have dropped down. You have touchdown. Okay, all right.
I have touchdown. I got my paraglider, which is apparently missable. I talked to Tiger actually last weekend when I was on my way back, and he told me he just missed it because once he got into Greater Hyrule, he was just like, I'm not gonna do what the story tells me, and just went off.
I did too. I didn't have the paraglider for like the first several hours of me touchdown.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and there's a lot. There's a lot of missable things. And like when you touch down, you don't even have all the mechanics yet. Like that radio wheel is still missing things that you could just not get.
It is. The last thing I got was recall.
Recall, yeah.
So there's still like 4 powers or something.
And I'll say like probably follow like the story a little bit. Like the tutorial keeps going a little bit, right? Like fill up that radio wheel because like everything can be like missable, which I found to be very interesting. Because like there was abilities I didn't have that like I was listening to like other podcasts talk about the game because after a certain point I'm just like, you know, let me hear other people's experiences, and that's how I learned about new things in this game to go check out, right? Mm-hmm. Similar to how I did Elden Ring. And like people are talking about like an ability they found, and I'm just like, I don't have that, but I've put in more hours. What happened? You know, and it's just like these things can be completely missable. I'm like, that's a decision.
I mean, like as a person who likes to not tread the beaten path, as it were, like especially in an open world game, I don't want to do what the game tells me to do. I want to go find whatever that shiny thing is off in the distance. Mm-hmm. In the Zelda games, it's a bit different because, you know, by how they do rewards and whatnot in both Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, I don't know. It's weird. I'm not sure what compels me to explore, but I still do it.
I know what drives me, honestly, is like, at least for like Tears of the Kingdom, right? Because I think the reward structure for the games are similar, right?
Right.
But I feel it's more rewarding in Tears of the Kingdom for a few different reasons. One being like lore purposes, for one. Like there's a much more like cohesive story being told here.
Yes, I agree with that.
There's a lot of like little tidbits that doesn't just fill out like the current story, but like fills out the entire world and its history. And like there are places much like how Elden Ring, if you go to like Caelid or something, right? Like the battlefields you see in Caelid are telling a story that happened here. And like the items that you find are like giving flavor text on like what happened in this spot, right? Like there's a consistent story being told about this area. And I think there are, to not maybe to like that degree, because like FromSoft is on some shit with that, but there is something there, and there are areas that I get to that I'm like, oh, there's a thing that has happened in this place, and I'm curious about what happens here, and you get like little information about it that is very interesting. So that compels me to go. And then because of the mechanics, I think the shrine puzzles in this game are a lot more clever in most cases. And like actually force me to like think a little bit more. And I'm a sucker for puzzles, right? So like that is some of my favorite stuff.
That's fair.
So that still pushes me forward, you know? But like actual maybe like item rewards aren't quite there. But there has been some stuff that I found that I'm like, okay, that's kind of cool. You know?
I like playing with like the fuse mechanic and see like what kind of stupid thing I can create. That keeps me going, and that actually makes me tolerate the weapon durability mechanic because I want to cycle through weapons just to see, well, what can I fuse this time? What stupid weapon can I fuse this time?
Yeah.
Now, on the flip side, this introduces new problems. And this is like one of the first things I noticed when I was playing the game. The fucking menu is a mess.
It is. Absolutely.
Oh, man. The fuse mechanic makes, or not even just the fuse, like, I think the Ultra Hand mechanic is a bit tedious too. I wish the ability to move pieces was a little bit more flexible.
Yeah.
And not as rigid as terms of like, you know, turning pieces to get them the way that you want them to. And then like sifting through the menu to find the monster piece or whatever item you're carrying to fuse, especially on the arrow. Like when you can attach literally anything to an arrow, and you're like, okay, I specifically want like a bomb flower, and you have to pull up this menu, and then you have to like go 30 items down, and
Yeah.
hopefully you find the bomb flower, and like that kind of takes me out of it a bit, which is a bit unfortunate. I don't know how you fix that, to be honest. Maybe not have it on a bar.
Yeah, like if they would have just brought up like a smaller inventory screen, right?
Yeah.
Like with a couple of rows. This way you can kind of fit more items onto the screen. You can just kind of like quickly get to the thing you want.
Or set like a favorites or something.
Or favorites would work too, right? I know you can sort the list by like most used and stuff like that. So if there is something that you're constantly like going to, right, or using a lot of, you can hit like I think Y or whatever resorts the list, and one of the sort options is by most frequently used, and I think like an actual history of what you've used, right?
Right.
So last item used. So I've been doing a lot of that to kind of mitigate that because I've kind of settled into like the things I like to use, right?
Fair.
So it's not as bad for me now, but I did feel the exact same. I'm like, this menu stuff is a little on the clunky side. At the same time, it's like I can understand why it might be a little difficult to figure out how this works, especially for like the first time that they're doing this.
I'm not offering a better solution because I don't know what that is.
But I feel like there's one out there, right? So if this is the direction they're continuing to go into, I feel like they'll get there eventually. But it's definitely a bit messy. Same thing with the controls. I feel too, like in general, I get mixed up on controls a little bit. Yeah. There have definitely been times where I've accidentally thrown my weapon because I wanted to equip something else, or like the button combinations. I'll fumble a little bit, especially in like high pressure situations. I'm like, oh, oops!
Let me free remap buttons. That should be in every video game ever.
That should be. Should always be able to remap controls.
In 2023, we should not like miss quality of life updates.
Listen, our Lord and Savior Shigeru Miyamoto said, "You must play the game my way." We can't.
I really just want to bind dash to a bumper, man. That's all I want to do, because every other video game does that.
Would be nice. Would be nice.
And like, what kills me is they have a one like remap where you can swap the jump and the run button, and I'm like, so you guys knew, and you still didn't do it.
Yeah.
That's even more insulting.
Right? It's like, here, we have gave you another option. It's still not as good.
Because like, if I put like throw weapon on the X button, or not the X button, I think on the Switch it is the X button. I would never throw my weapon if I didn't want to. Because I can't accidentally hit it there. Putting something like throw weapon on a bumper button, especially when holding the Switch in portable mode, I find myself like rubbing against the bumpers all the time. It's really frustrating. I don't understand why mapped controls are not a normal thing.
And the philosophy, man, it doesn't make any sense. Doesn't make any sense. Have you found any fun combinations? Like, what is your favorite sort of concoction you have created so far?
I haven't gotten that far yet, because as soon as I did like a little bit of the tutorial and I got my paraglider, because the first thing you see when you go to the Greater Hyrule after coming down from the sky, you see a giant hole in the ground.
Oh yeah.
And the first thing I did was, before, like, the first thing I got down there, I'm like, let me jump in the hole and see what happens.
Yeah.
Well, I died. And I was like, oh, okay, I guess I need the paraglider before I jump in here. And so then when I got the paraglider, I was like, I'm going to go jump in that hole right now. And so I jumped in the hole, realized there's a fucking underworld.
Bro.
And I'm like, oh.
That shit. The underworld might be like my favorite part of this game.
It's very funny because once again, you and Ron have complete opposite opinions.
Oh, word.
Oh, he hates it.
Does he? Oh, my
he
God.
hates it.
I think the underworld is cool.
part of it, like having to shoot bright bloom arrows everywhere, is kind of annoying. Um,
I like that though, because like I like the idea of like I can't see. I don't know what's down here. Like there are faint glows of like reddish things or creatures, and I'm just like I am lost in this world that I have no business being here, right? And
that's
it
true.
sets
Like
like a
I do think that
tension
is cool.
level that like is not introduced anywhere else, like in this game or Breath of the Wild, for that matter. And then like when you start to do more like quests and stuff that are down there, and you start exploring more stuff down there, like the history of the underground is very fascinating too. And there are connections elsewhere with the underground. Like the more I uncover about the underground area, I am like
Hmm.
I am so surprised. Well, maybe surprised isn't the right word, but it's fascinating that like Nintendo never talked about this, right? It's always been when you look at like promotion for Tears of the Kingdom, it's always like the Sky Islands, which I have feelings about that. But there was never any mention of an underground area, and it was such a pleasant and weird and strange like discovery to jump down the hole and be like, oh, there is a whole, literally a whole nother world down here.
Hmm. That's fair.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's fair.
Yeah. I'm curious to see where you land. Like, when you mess around
Well,
down there some
what's
more
your
and
issue
stuff.
with the sky?
The it's mostly like I find it very uninteresting. Most of like the Sky Islands I have landed on, is like there's nothing really interesting is happening up there for me. For me, I should say specifically. Um, I don't know. It's it's just like maybe there's a shrine here. Okay, cool. Narratively, it's not like doing much for me up there either. And like they're all spread out like far enough to where I don't know. There's almost like no cohesion with like the islands that are just floating there. It's almost like they sprinkled it there just to sprinkle islands there, right? Like I don't
Hmm.
know. The stuff that I'm finding up there isn't nearly as interesting as like going into a pitch black area and being like, oh shit, everything down here is going to fucking kill me. You know. And sometimes
Fair.
like traveling between the Sky Islands is also not necessarily a pain, but like, I don't know. Navigating up there isn't all that interesting either. But
Hmm.
yeah, it's cool though. Like I'm glad they added like another space, right? Um, but just it's not doing anything nearly close to like what the underground is doing for me.
Fair. Hmm. Well, I wish I had more to comment on it, but I'm still so like
Early
in the
on,
beginning.
yeah.
Yeah, that like I can't comment too much. Like I haven't done a dungeon. I've done a couple shrines.
Hmm.
So far they're Breath of the Wild shrines.
Hmm.
Um, like nothing was like too crazy. I did like make a plane.
Hell
That
yeah.
was cool. Like all the technology that the game gives you access to, and there's more collectibles because now there's like I want to level up my battery so I
Yes.
can use more technology or devices. Um, so yeah, I mean,
I think like especially the earlier shrines are very like tutorial level style, right? Where it's just like let's get you used to like some very basic stuff. Um, but I think I have found some shrines that have like really pushed me into like thinking outside of the box. Which I've talked about this before. I think with you in Asher when we went to lunch one day, or maybe I've talked to somebody else about it. But it's like there are some puzzles that they have created that I think are like 10 out of 10, like fascinating. Like, give me an entire game that's just built off of this concept, right? Like, there are some really fucking interesting puzzles in this game. Um, but I also feel like there are times where like the system is so open ended that you can kind of just bypass them in like the
mhm.
cheesiest way possible and not interact with it the way that like it's designed to be interacted with. And that is both like, I'm still wrestling with my feelings on it, but like it is both a bummer but also very cool at the same time, because like if you had forced me to interact with the puzzle in this very specific way and make me think about this puzzle, like think of a solution outside the box, that would be I would feel like a fucking genius, right? But instead the game is like, but what if you just made a bridge though, just a really long wooden bridge? And I'm like, you know what if I just did that and bypassed the entire actual like intellectual part of this puzzle? And the fact that the game lets me do that though, I think is really cool. But at the same time, I'm like,
also feels like an oversight.
It's like, yeah, right. But then I heard somebody else talk about it and break it down before, and what led me more to believe that like, no, this is actually really smart of them, is that like, even though I wanted to be challenged more, I could have forced myself to do it the right way. But it also like lowers the bar for people in that like you're never in a situation where like nobody can complete this thing, right? And it's like it's a weird sort of accessibility thing, right? Where it's like, hey, this might be too challenging for some people. So if they can think of like the easy out of like, let me just make a giant bridge to do this, that one satisfies the condition of, hey, they get to complete the puzzle, but also makes people like proud that they thought of this idea to do it, right? It's a fascinating like design choice that they did there, and it works. So I'm both like disappointed in some ways, but very impressed in others. Yeah, it's, I don't know. This game, in my opinion, is like really fucking cool. I'm excited for you to like keep poking at it, because I think it took me a minute to like get over the hump, as it were. Because for a little while when I was playing it, I almost felt like this doesn't feel that much different than Breath of the Wild in some ways.
It's very much the sequel to Breath of the Wild.
It's very much the sequel, right? And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because personally, I love Breath of the Wild, and I'm like, the game here is good, but like, what makes this game Tears of the Kingdom, right? And after like a certain point, I completely bought into the game. It's just like something clicked in my brain, and I'm just like, no, everything they designed here is fucking actually insane and really, really good. And I'm wondering like if there will be a moment in this game that like does that for you, that you just kind of have like this epiphany of like, no, this game is fucking incredible, or is it gonna go the other way and you're just like, it's whatever, or maybe fall somewhere in between.
I mean, I hope not, considering I have bought like the Switch and the controller and like all the. I want this to be like my favorite game of all time.
I mean, aesthetically, that stuff is cool though. Like,
you're right.
I'm not the biggest Animal Crossing fan, but I like the Animal Crossing Switch because of the colors.
I mean, I'll say this much: the narrative has definitely hooked me.
It's really
I'm
good.
very intrigued by that. I'm very intrigued by that. So I want to see more of that, obviously. I just need time to like let me be.
That narratively, it's so fucking cool. It might be like my favorite Zelda story.
You haven't played Skyward Sword yet, so
I haven't.
That is still my favorite Zelda story. Free.
I don't know, but this is hitting all of the notes that I need a story to hit. So it's good. That's all I can really say. Cool, man. Anything else or other thoughts on it, or?
Yeah, give me a hyperbolic time chamber, please.
That still would be nice, wouldn't it?
I don't think I'm beating that game before Final Fantasy 16. I just don't think it's happening. I do not think it's happening.
I think I'm probably, for what I want to complete out of that game, because I'm not going to like 100%, like I'm not doing all shrines and all Koroks and stuff, but for doing like all of the main missions and probably like most of the side quests, I'd say, I'm probably sitting at like the 60% mark. At least that's how I feel, right? Looking at like what's ahead of me and what I feel like I have left to do. I think
Mhm.
I'm there. Like I think a good like another weekend push and I can pretty much be at the door. Um, I'm gonna try to have it done by 16, but we'll see what happens. Never know what life throws at me or us or anybody, you know.
Yeah, all this traveling I'm doing is really eating into my game time, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. Understandable. Uh,
Um, well, I think that brings us to the big one.
I mean, let me see. Let me knock out something real quick because we both played Street Fighter Six,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
we
yeah.
might as well
So
just
go
spend.
ahead and
Yeah.
go
Um.
ahead and do yours.
Yeah. Yeah. I won't get into spoiler territory or anything of that nature.
Because I will find you and kill you.
You will find me and kill me. I understand. I understand. I'll write in my journal all of the juicy details. But I did finally start Xenoblade Chronicles 3 over the last week, and just like general thoughts on it. I went into this game not really knowing anything, right? The only thing I've seen on this game was like the initial like launch trailer, or not the launch trailer, but like the announcement trailer for it, right? And then maybe like one video in a random direct like last year or something, right? Like really didn't know anything what this game offers, and then of course I think we all got spoiled at least in some small capacity of like the DLC, right?
Hmm.
Because that was a fucking apparently that was a historical moment and everybody needed to fucking tweet about it. Um, so going into this game completely blind, and coming off of hey Street Fighter 6 in the background, Drew is in training mode.
No,
Um,
no, I was trying to close out of the stats menu I had left up, and that
uh,
went to the title menu.
Street Fighter
And
6.
apparently, my controller screams at me Street Fighter Six
It
at the title menu.
screams. It's fucking snitching controller. Um, I and then after like playing Xenoblade Chronicles 2, and we've talked about this game a lot on this show, especially like when it came out, and how I both love that game to death, but also I'm very critical of that game, right? Like both can be true.
Yeah, I think it's okay to love a flawed game.
Absolutely. 100%. There are plenty of flawed games that are like my personal favorites, and I will always like preface like what is bad about it, but then tell you about like what I love about it at the same time. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 out the gate, like within the first hour of this game, far exceeds my feelings towards Xenoblade Chronicles 2. Like
Full words.
it has an amazing start, and it has been delivering constantly, consistently.
I live in a world of two polar opposites. It's
Yeah,
amazing
yeah.
because between you and Ron, it's just like
Oh, I
it's
believe
wild to me. It's
I
wild to me.
it
It's
can
just like
gamers. Am I
I
right?
get both of I get both of them. Like, well, no, okay, I understand that, but
Yeah,
like it is 100% between you and him. It's
yeah.
like polar opposite opinions every fucking time.
Always. He is he is my shadow.
So I
I
find
am
it very
thou.
funny when you say that because all I've been hearing for the past like however long I forget how long ago he played it.
Hmm.
He's just like, yeah, I think it's the weakest story out of all of them, and I'm like, I'm sure you do,
Yeah.
sure you do.
And that could come from a place of like we're coming to these things with like very different like expectations or like what we look for
He
in games
doesn't
and
like
stories,
Chrono
right?
Trigger.
So I,
That's the context for our audience that I'm going to give.
I'd be curious to hear the reasons though. I wouldn't completely dismiss that opinion though. But
I would.
but I digress. Like I think I could be I would gladly listen to someone's reasonings on like why they didn't like X thing that is like beloved, right? I'm sure there's something in there that's probably a nugget of truth. In the same way that I'm critical about FF6, right? I still like that game.
Well, you're just wrong.
Apparently, we are all wrong. I'll get to the replay of that game soon. But either way, yeah. So what it's doing, it for me personally, it is a lot of things that I look for in stories, and in characters, in like their likability. This is, I wouldn't say one of the few times, but I feel like it doesn't happen enough to where like I love the entire cast of this game. Like it doesn't even take much, right? Like from the jump, I'm like, I love everybody here. It's not taking much convincing, right? And the scenarios that they're presented with is very fascinating. In the world that they have created, I'm like, as it's unfolding, I'm just like, I can vibe with this. I am digging this. I want to see where this goes. And will it pay off in the end? I don't know. I'm 13-ish hours into the game at this point. We're still unlocking battle mechanics a la what Xenoblade does, right? But I will also say it's probably my like favorite battle system out of the games so far, for a bunch of different reasons that I will let you figure out when you get to it, because there are definitely things in here that I had no idea this game was going to do this or do X Y Z thing. And I was just like, how did I not get spoiled on this thing, this mechanic? This is sick. I have said that
I think I know what
times.
mechanic you're talking about because I know of some mechanics.
What mechanics do you know?
Do you want me to tell you? You might not have gotten to it yet.
Go for it.
It's basically Tales of Hysteria.
How do you mean?
Like there's a fuse mechanic.
There is. That is one. That's not the one that I said, oh, this is tight though.
Oh, really?
Really? I do think the fuse mechanic, it's all right. I think it handles it way better than Hysteria. I will give it that.
Well, sure. A lot of games handle what Hysteria does a lot better.
This is true. That mechanic in particular is very interesting. I'm still learning like how to properly use it. But I am okay with it, and I'm interested in like how it plays into fights going forward. Still working through that, but I do think that mechanic's actually pretty cool. But there are several other things that this game does that I'm like, this is sick. This is actually really sick. So yeah, that's about all I can actually get into, right? Just like a quick overview on my feelings of what this game is doing and how it makes me really excited to play through more of it. It's the game that I'm thinking about a lot lately. Like when I come home from work, it's like the first thing I'm doing is like, I want to play Xenoblade before anything else and knock out an hour or two before hopping on like Zelda or something else.
That's fair. You know, it's crazy. You could do this thing called playing one game at a time, and then you could play Xenoblade 3 all the time.
I could, but then I wouldn't have content for the show. I gotta play
Shots fired.
I gotta play multiple games, dog. But also like I just like playing multiple games, right? In anything that comes out, I want to like get my hands on it. Like even if I've gotten to a place now where like I am okay with not completing a game. Like there are obviously games like that are very important to me that I will see through to the end, right? And I will make time for that. But I'm also okay with just like, I just want to touch this thing real quick and see what it's like. Because so many games come out these days that capture my interest, and I'm like, I know I don't have the time in the world to do all of this stuff, but I at least want to be like, I gave this a shot and I see what it's doing, right? That I think I'm finding more enjoyment out of that, and that is something that is like really important to me. So like that's kind of why I'm always bouncing between games. I'm just like, I want to see what this is doing. This just came out. I want to be a part of that conversation, see what this is doing. And then that just kind of, I don't know, that just kind of helped me enjoy this hobby more than it would if I just stuck with one. Because I've done that before, a couple of years ago, where I did focus on like one thing at a time, and I found that I was not having nearly as much fun. And that also played into a time when like I was focusing hard on like a single fighting game and stuff like that too. I found like I was getting like way more irritated by like little things as I'm playing a game. Like I feel like I need like a break, right? And I need to like break these sessions up with something else. And then that's when I learned like, oh, I have more fun when I am constantly bouncing around between things to just kind of like reset myself. And then I just kind of like carried that over into like the broader spectrum of like games in general. Yeah, that's just how I consume media. You know.
I mean, fair. I won't hate.
Yeah, but outside of that, we talked about Tears of the Kingdom. That's still going. I'm like 60 hours into that game, I think. Hopefully I have that done pretty soon. I feel like that was another small thing that I was playing, but I'm not gonna sweat too hard about it. I'll talk about that another day. What we're really here for is Street Fighter 6. This is a game that me and you both have been playing a little bit of. Well, I've been playing a little bit of. You've been playing a lot of. Tell me about this video game. Is something that you have been really excited for.
So I have been playing Street Fighter 6 since Wednesday of last week, or this past week, I suppose. This game's really good. This game's really, really good.
Yeah.
Like, there are just so many things that I could like posit towards this game's credit. Of my community had like a 20-man tournament on Friday for day one of Street Fighter 6, and like everybody was like happy and having fun, which is not something that has happened in this community for years.
And that is something that has been happening in the broader FTC community as well. Everywhere seems to have, everybody is excited for this game. You know, obviously there are some that don't take to it, and that's fine, right? But for the most part, it seems like it's hitting right for basically every sub community within the FTC. Like everybody's finding enjoyment out of this game, which is very cool. Yeah. Especially for Capcom, right? Like it is a really good win for Capcom, who has been kind of like struggling on that front. Especially,
not releasing anything after Ultra Street Fighter 4. It's weird that they skip numbers, but you know what?
I say that's the position he takes. I say, I understand.
No, I mean, look, Street Fighter 5 just divided my local community into pieces. That game was just so unpopular around here that it pretty much killed fighting games in my area.
Right.
Like Street Fighter. So everybody plays their own fighting game. Everybody has their own favorite fighting game. And then, like, when you're in a competitive like scene, everybody has that fighting game that they go to. But not growing up, but like as I was becoming more involved with the FGC as a whole and like competitive fighting games, Street Fighter was always the glue that brought everybody together. At least in my community, because back in like I'm essentially an 09er. Like I started playing like fighting games like more competitively with like Third Strike when I was in high school. Like my buddy like he got the Street Fighter Anniversary Collection that had like Hyper Fighting and Third Strike. And he showed it to me and he shared it with me, and then he showed me like Evo Moment 37, and like boom, competitive fighting game Drew was born. And so like I had been playing fighting games since then, and like Street Fighter was always on the docket, right? Like I played Street Fighter 3, I wasn't particularly good at it. I didn't understand what it was to play fighting games at the time.
Right.
And then Street Fighter 4 came out, and like we all had like Street Fighter 4 was my main game, but like everybody in my community like had their other game that they played, whether it be like Marvel or Guilty Gear or Persona or Tekken or whatever, right?
Right.
Everybody played Street Fighter.
Hmm.
So that like no matter what, when everybody got together, like people would play their own games, but then they also play Street Fighter. So like everybody played a game together, and there was like this sense of community.
Right.
And then like fast forward to 7 years later, I think Street Fighter 5 was 2016. 7 years later, Street Fighter 5 comes out, and like all of us just don't feel the same way on day one of Street Fighter 5.
Right.
Like Street Fighter 4 is the reason I am the person I am today. The friends that I have are because of Street Fighter.
Hmm.
If I didn't have Street Fighter, I would not have the life that I have today.
Right.
And like it's very weird to think that like after Street Fighter 5, like our community kind of like just sort of went their separate ways, and like we didn't have the sense of community anymore. And like we're playing Street Fighter 6, like this game's finally out, and everybody is just so freaking hype and having fun, and we're all like super hyped for this game, and like I can't describe how happy this game makes me.
I think you
Like, I
just
can't put
described
into
it pretty
words.
well, honestly. I think you have described that it means a lot, right? And it's done a lot for you and the community. So I think
Yeah.
you have explained how important it is. I definitely I feel it, you know. But what is it about
I
the
mean,
game? Like what is driving you to this game? Like,
well, I mean, the game just feels right.
hmm
I don't know what it is about Street Fighter Five, that something about that game. Because I'll be honest, there's a lot of things in Street Fighter Six that come from Five, like mechanics wise and design choice wise. Like Street Fighter Six is not just like, well, forget everything we did in Five. Like this is a completely new fighting game. No, it does base itself around some of the design choices of Five. For example, like things like pressure, not being the same as it was in a game like Street Fighter 4 or earlier Street Fighter games, like certain mechanics being designed with the way they are. Like it is more akin to Street Fighter 5, but something about the game, like the game has an identity. The game is very pretty to look at. This game has an identity of like, this is Street Fighter. Whereas like on launch, Street Fighter V was so bare bones, it wasn't even funny. You might as well have just gotten like an open beta
yeah,
or an early access game. I think
it
is
was
probably more accurate.
it was very incomplete on launch. They overpromised
Yes.
a lot for that game, and they focused on the wrong parts of that game, because that was definitely
Yeah.
when Capcom was focusing on like this huge esports initiative and like forgot about what it took to make a complete good game, right?
Yes.
It was definitely bad direction for it, and five eventually got to a good spot. Like the final season of five is considered to be like a very good game, but it still like divided a Capcom community, right?
Yes. And for a lot of people, it was too little too late at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. There's only you can only win back so many people. Like first impression is
Right.
the most important thing in anything. And six is like there are aspects of five and six, but what I really appreciate out of six is that it feels like a greatest hits of like the entire Street Fighter like legacy, right?
I agree with that.
Because like there are mechanics that they take out from like third strike when you think about like parries, right? Even though they function differently, right? But like the idea that parries is a universal option is back in this game.
Yep.
Or you have the drive impact, which is like a different take on like what a focus attack was, right?
Yep.
In the drive rush, which is based off of that, is like a FADC kind of deal, right? So
Yeah.
it's like they take all of these ideas from all the previous Street Fighter games, as well as giving the characters like tools from like every Street Fighter game as well. Like these are the most complete versions of every character.
I agree.
We talked about it before of like, how do you take Guile and like make him an interesting character? This game fucking did it, right? He still only has like
I
two
argue
special
he's still like the
moves.
same character. that he's been for the past 35 years. But
But he
they
has
gave
way more.
him
But he has way more interest in like combo routing and stuff too. Like they
sure.
gave him all of the cool stuff that he ended up gaining in like Street Fighter 5 as well, with like the enhanced sonic booms. They even gave you a perfect boom, right?
Yeah.
They gave you more things to play around, more tools to play around with that are still within Guile's kit. So like functionally, yes, he is still very much, I'm going to throw fireballs and I'm going to flash kick, right? But they gave him more tools and like normals and stuff like that to play around with, right? So even though he's the same character, yes, but like there is more to him in this game than any other previous Street Fighter game, right? Which is really fucking cool, right? And I feel like they did that with every character, right? Even Blanca is like a completely different character now, right? It's kind of wild how much stuff they've given everybody.
It is true. I mean, every character, like I've been going through, like since I got the game. First, I want to point out, like this game feels very friendly to beginners. This game gives a lot of tools to people who want to learn how to play fighting games, or they're new to like Street Fighter, or they want to play a character that they've never played before. This game gives you like a lot of resources to like sort of make that venture, because like these character breakdowns that they did, like they included character breakdowns for every character in the game.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not just like little quick blurbs of like what the character does, or like, hey, this character has this really cool move. They're like straight up actual character breakdowns going in depth, move by move, of like what this character is supposed to do, and like how they design this character and what they want this character to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's really cool, because at the very least, I can go through all of that like without having played any of the other characters. I can get an idea for what this character wants to do.
Right.
Yeah, and I think that that's really cool.
I think that's awesome. Right. That is something that these games needed, and you've seen games like take a stab at it here and there, and like to different varying degrees of success or non-success. But it's a struggle trying to figure out like how to do this right. And I feel like Street Fighter is definitely like a very big good step in a direction of like making that onboarding ramp like easier for people, right? Of like all skill levels. From you know, people that have played fighting games before that are just looking to get into like a new thing they're not familiar with, to like people that have just picked up a fighting game for the very first time. I think their approach to even like the different control schemes is actually very smart and interesting. To where I have witnessed so many people enjoying this game that legitimately have never touched Street Fighter before, and they're like, "Hey, this is a really cool fucking package." And that has been one of the coolest things to see in my point of view, because I'm like, how do you?
But like there's just so much content behind it.
Yeah. There's a lot. It is so much content for everybody, which I think is great, right? Like fiddling around with like the World Tour mode, I'm like, I could see, like maybe me personally, I might not go through all of it, right? But there is a world where like younger Rob does. Right, in the same way that I went through like all of like Suspect's Emissary and all the goofy,
or like Weapon Master mode,
Weapon Master mode. Like there is a Rob that eats that mode up, right? And I've seen people, or I have friends that are in that headspace that loves that mode, and it's very, very fucking cool. And then you have like the other, the well thought out training mode for people that are
that might be a little too well thought out. Those menus are a little intimidating.
They are, but they give you everything you need, right? And it takes a while to learn it. But the person that is trying to be competitive is going to learn how those menus work and take advantage of what's in there. And they have all the tools needed to learn this game from within the game, not having to go to like a dust loop or a Discord somewhere, a wiki page to get information, right? Like it gives you everything. And it even sets up like some basic fun like practice scenarios of like, here's how to practice anti-airs. Like, so even for people that are newer, like it can just set up the scenario, like common scenarios for you to practice, right? That stuff is amazing, right? And on top of having like amazing online as well, like it feels great. They have like the goofy game modes as well, like the extreme battle modes and the tag battle modes, and all that stuff is online compatible too. It's
Shout
like, all
outs to
right,
team battles being back in fighting
yeah,
games after like almost two decades of just not being around anymore.
right. And that's a mode that like there are a lot of people that love that mode. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
silly, right? And they're just like, we're gonna throw it in there. It's this new age of Capcom is very fucking cool.
Yeah.
I love this product.
Yeah. I
You
think
know.
I think it's quite an incredible package.
Mm,
I think it's the full package. I haven't been able to stop playing it since I've got it.
yeah.
Part of that is competitive drive, which is another aspect I want to talk about. However, there are some things I do want to point out that I think are need some tweaking. Just some quality of life upgrades I'd like to see Capcom do. For example, there's some kind of weird bug in training mode that during matchmaking. So instead of tying like a play and record button to the normal control scheme in the training mode, what they've created is like the shortcut mode, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and the shortcut mode is kind of cool in the sense that like it lets you like assign buttons on your controller to like reset training mode, like record a dummy, play a dummy, and all that. But
Right.
like in actuality, it's a little bit bugged. Like I was using it at first, and I had to stop using it because the game natively uses PlayStation Touchpad to restart battle in training mode.
Mm-hmm.
My stick does not have that, therefore I cannot utilize that. So I was taking advantage of the shortcut button. However, like when I utilize the shortcut button, it's really buggy. When I use shortcut button to do like play and record.
Right.
Um, it negative edges my buttons,
Mm-hmm.
even though like you can turn negative edge on and off, and I have negative edge turned off. So like I'll record a dummy and then I will hit function button, and then because the way I have it assigned is like I have an 8 button stick. And like normally I would just have like my last two buttons be play and record, but
Right.
then I don't have a button to assign reset. So you use what's called this function button, and I tie that to one of my buttons, and then I can assign those commands to like function plus one of my face buttons. So I can do like function light punch is reset battle, function heavy punch is record dummy, and function heavy kick is play dummy.
Right.
Um, but whenever I do that, it negative edges my button, so I'll record a dummy or I'll play a dummy, and then my player character will do a move,
Mm,
which screws up the timing for the whole recording.
right. I see.
So I ended up just assigning like play and record to just those last two buttons, and then like I can utilize that, but then like I can't reset training mode. And I'm like, I'd like for them to take a look at that and see why it does that. But like that's not the only thing. Matchmaking in training mode is also kind of bugged because you can't use any shortcuts when it's matchmaking for whatever reason.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Like you can, but like
Mm-hmm.
when it's joining you with somebody, and like
Mm-hmm.
I have it to where like I confirm who I'm going to play, so I don't have like any Wi-Fi players.
Uh-huh.
While it's connecting you to that, it just won't let you do any shortcuts. You can do everything else in training mode, but you can't like hit record, play, or any of that.
Oh, huh.
And I'm like, that's really frustrating
That's
because
weird.
that makes it like really annoying to like try and practice stuff like while you're waiting for matches.
Right. Right.
Because
Yeah,
like that's
that's
what you
super
want to do
weird.
in training mode. Like combos are really like they don't require like a lot of practice, and like you can practice hit confirms and all that, but like you want to practice situations, especially since like the game gives you this option to like after you play a match, you can go into training mode versus the character you just played. So
Yeah.
if there was a particular situation that you wanted to lab out, you'd be able to do that. But like for whatever reason, like when it's connecting you to somebody, it just doesn't do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
it's really annoying.
that's pretty annoying. I'm sure that's something that they'll fix, but that
I'm
sounds pretty
sure it's
annoying.
a
Yeah.
bug. Like
Yeah.
I feel like that's a bug, and like they might fix it. Um, because like I typically when I do matchmaking, I'm in training mode because I'm practicing stuff. Unless the game doesn't really allow me to do that. Um, that being said, like, you know, these are all like small things. Like, it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things. All live. The game is still great.
Right.
Um, I do wish that it would let me just automatically, like, just filter out everybody who's playing on Wi-Fi.
Does it not?
No.
I thought that was an option.
If there is, I don't know about it.
Oh, okay. Huh.
Because like
But
you can filter out by connection, but as far as I'm aware, you are connection strength. You can't filter
gotcha.
out by connection type.
Got you. They only added the Wi-Fi icon.
Right.
Gotcha. I see. I see.
And so like if it's bars, you can tell that they're on a wire connection. But if
Yep.
it's like the wave thing,
Yeah, the Wi-Fi
it's
symbol.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, other than that, like those are minor gripes that I had, but all in all, like I've been enjoying my time with it, and like I'm using this game as sort of a different approach to, you know, my competitive desires,
Mm-hmm.
as it were, my competitive goals. Like this game has prompted me to try and learn a character that I would have never thought to. Like I'm playing DJ, which is a
Yeah,
character
you
I
are.
never thought that I would be playing. Historically, like I've been playing fighting games for over 15 years now. I never played charge characters. Like I messed around with DeCapre a little bit in Street Fighter 4, but like not really. I don't play charge characters. Charge characters have always been a sort of a wall of sorts. Like I didn't understand the idea of using a charge character in an actual match. The concept of that just felt a bit too obtuse to me.
Yeah.
That it's just like, why would I want to wait to use my moves when I can just do a character that is a quarter circle forward button and we're good.
Mm-hmm.
But like I wanted to keep myself open minded in this game because I didn't want to fall into the same trappings that I do in every other fighting game where I just like I commit to a character and I am dead set on this character. Like I'm still dead set on this dream of someday being on like Evo top 8 stage. Like
Mm-hmm.
I really want to make that dream come true, and I'm trying to use Street Fighter 6 as that vehicle to make that dream come true.
Right.
And Street Fighter 6 also gives me the tools to sort of try this new approach because it gives me the ability to look at these new characters and see what they're about and try them out. And like DJ wasn't even necessarily on my radar.
It's
I just
just
happened to like just start messing with him, and I'm like, oh,
yeah.
this character's kind of cool. And then like that prompted me. I'm like, well, you know, maybe it's time we learn a charge character. Like it
Mm-hmm.
only took 15 years.
And it was one of those things where we were talking too, where I'm like, there's no better time to just like learn it, right? Where it's like you have a new
Mm-hmm.
game, you're already learning new systems. Might as well learn a charge character now before you get super comfortable. You know what I mean? Then it
Yeah,
just becomes natural because it's part of the learning process. You're in that learning
yeah.
headspace. But also, you know what the biggest benefit is? Drew,
What?
if you ever go back to Persona 4, you can play Mitsuru.
That's fair.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. It's cool, man. I'm glad I'm glad you're expanding your horizons on that. I think a charge character is definitely like it is a type of character that pushes a lot of people away, right? Because for all the
Mm-hmm.
reasons you stated earlier, right? People find it like on some ways intimidating or in
Yeah.
some ways overwhelming or just confusing, complicated. When it it's different. It's not as complicated as people make it out to be, but it is different. But the cool thing is going forward, you will never be limited by that again. Because when you learn how to
That's
play one
true.
charge character, you pretty much know how to play every other charge character, right? You just gotta
Yeah.
like maybe adjust for like what the timings are because historically, anime games have much quicker charges than like Capcom games. Though I know this one is a little
Mm-hmm.
bit better about it. So like you may feel yourself around that, but now the whole world is open to you. You can play any character, you know?
Yeah.
It's very cool.
And like I think like that sort of approach is like playing DJ has sort of unveiled some bad habits of myself of like like in a sense, it's a way of improving my fundamentals, like as a player, because now I have to commit to this sort of like input type, and like I can't just move unnecessarily. Like everything has to be what's the word I'm looking for? Oh, God damn it! I just had it.
Oh, what's the word? You got to be a bit more methodical.
Deliberate. Like every
Deliberate.
action has to be deliberate.
Mm-hmm.
For example, like when I play a normal, like just a motion character in a fighting game, I'll do like a lot of unnecessary movement for the sake of I can, because I can just react with a quarter circle whenever I want, right?
Right.
Whereas with DJ, I can't do that, because if I'm doing unnecessary motion, I lose my charge, and I can't afford to lose my charge because I need to be able to like do up kicks or do a fireball or do something. And like, it's not like a full charge character, mind you. Like DJ does have like some motion inputs, which makes like doing combos with him a lot easier. But like most charge characters only have like one or two moves anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I think most charge characters are hybrid characters now. Like, isn't May a hybrid character?
Yeah. I think a lot of times you find hybrid characters now. There's very few characters these days that are just like pure charge. You know.
Yeah. But like, you know, this idea of playing a charge character, it's a new frontier, and like Street Fighter 6 is the perfect game to just. The game feels like you can just express how you want to play fighting games, for lack of a better word.
No, I think it does. I think a large part of that is because of the drive gauge and how meter use is in this game, and how many tools every character has. There's so many different ways to tackle this game, right? Where Street Fighter V had an issue where like a lot of characters were sort of homogenized and like very like this is how you play them. Right, and it's very little room for creativity. There's some here and there, but for the most part, it's like this is how you play this character, and like and that's tied to like how restrictive the system is, right, on a system level. Whereas 6 is just like you have so many options in front of you that like how you're going to utilize these resources is going to be very different than how somebody else does, and you guys can both end up in like the right location. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's my favorite part of this game, and that's what I'm looking forward to the most when it comes to like watching tournaments and events going forward. Is just like how is everybody going to tackle this? Because even right now in the early stages, right, there's like a very different philosophy going on between like the West and Japan, right, when it comes to even Burnout, right, where it's like and I need to watch some more, right? But definitely like around the launch and like some of the end of the beta, it's very much like we're thinking about Burnout a lot more, right? And it's like we're like Burnout is bad. Don't ever get in Burnout, right? Where Japan is just like we don't care about it. We're gonna cash out. We're gonna fucking cash out.
Really? That's actually not what I would have expected. I would have expected the opposite.
The other way around, right? So it's been very interesting to watch like towards the end of the beta in like the early like first day of Street Fighter 6, and I'm very curious to see like where everybody ends up by like Evo, right? Because that can very much change, you know. But you can kind of see how like both regions are thinking about the game very differently. And that's always been a very fun part of fighting games in general, like when I would watch Street Fighter 4 or like Melty Blood or just like older fighting games in general, where it's just like everybody has different ideas on like how to tackle this game, and the game allows for it, you know. It's gonna be fascinating. It's gonna be really fascinating. I'm excited.
I'm very interested to see how CEO is going to play out, as I am now traveling to CEO for this game. I'm very interested to see how it plays out.
Yeah. I think CEO is going to be very interesting. It's also going to be very messy, right? Because it is the first tournament. I think it's going to be interesting from a standpoint of like nobody knows what's like optimal. You know what I mean? Nobody has it figured out, right? So it's just going to be like what gets through, like what is the early idea of what this game is, and then seeing what everybody does with that information after CEO and the adjustments that will be made for Evo is also going to be really fascinating. Um, Exciting times, just exciting all around. I've been listening to like everybody talk about this game, like how excited they are for their characters. Like when I was talking to like Xavier about Honda and how much he loves Honda in Street Fighter 4, and like 5 just completely turned him off, like he skipped it completely. And now like you can kind of see like the light in his eyes when he's playing this game, and like I haven't seen that in so long. And I'm seeing that out of everybody that touched this game, and that's so fucking cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's
Street Fighter is something special, man. Like I love
ah,
fighting games, and BB Tag is probably my favorite fighting game of all time. That won't change. Like, I love Guilty Gear Xrd, also one of my favorite fighting games of all time. Street Fighter has this weird ability to like bring everybody together.
mhm. It has that power. It's that main game for a reason, right? Or at least a front facing fighting game.
Yeah.
Between that and Mortal Kombat for different reasons. So it's I don't know. I know for
I mean,
me,
I think Street Fighter is the most prolific fighting game franchise ever.
prolific. I think
Yes.
it's up there, right? Like I don't think you can really talk about
Mortal
Street
Kombat
Fighter
might be a little
without
bit more.
Mortal Kombat. Like you have to talk about both of those.
Yeah.
I don't think you can have one really without the other, because they penetrate like two different sides of like the market. Um,
Yeah.
because I think from like that competitive standpoint, and like you think about like arcade culture and stuff. You think about like grassroots tournaments and all that, it's Street Fighter, right?
Yeah.
When people are like, we want to be as popular as Street Fighter, but Mortal Kombat in the background is always like that franchise that everybody has played, that has broke through to the casual level, right?
Sure.
Just like people that don't play video games, oh, I know Mortal Kombat, I know Raiden, it's like that level. Um, and I think that is something to think about and commend as well. So I would agree that Street Fighter is absolutely prolific, but I don't think it's like the most. I think you have both exist. I don't think you can really pick one over the other.
Fair.
But this is definitely a highlight. I will say that. I think a lot of games have some, a lot of series have some work cut out for them going forward.
And I mean, like, it's especially refreshing coming off like all the issues with Strive that we have been having for like the past 5, 6 months.
Hmm.
Like the game works out the box. I can queue up for like a ranked and I can get matches right away. There's not a lot of connection issues. The game feels robust. There's a lot of characters. I don't know. I don't know.
He doesn't know.
I
So
mean,
what?
I don't know how much of this is the honeymoon phase, but like, or how much of like this is just genuinely made an impression on me. But like,
Strong impression. Strong first
it is.
impression. Like we
It
said
is.
earlier, first impression is very important. We'll see where the dust settles, but for now, it's like very exciting times, And
Yeah.
it may not pan out. It might fizzle out. Who knows? But we can always say, at the very least, like it is the most interesting that Street Fighter has like been in a very long time, and there's no
Yeah.
arguing like how much it has revitalized things. It is a
Yeah.
breath of fresh air, even if only for a moment. Um, I'm still like I'm still playing around with several characters. Like I don't know where I'm gonna settle. Right. I've been having a lot of fun with Lily. She is just May in this game, and I'm like, yeah, that's pretty accurate. Uh, so there's an odd sense of like comfort in playing that character, given my background of characters. But
Hmm.
the more I see of like Honda, I'm like, I might shift over there. Um, but we'll see where I land. I need to play more.
That's fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh, Anything else to touch on? in regards
That's
to?
all I got.
That's all.
I have a
That's it.
headache from like gushing so much.
Oh Jesus Christ! He gushed all over the place. Uh, sounds pretty good. Any like news items you wanna talk about before we just wrap this up and get out of here?
I'm not even sure what's in the news other than Street Fighter 6 came out. Like I am
Man,
fucking
my man's is
is
in the hole. He is down bad,
my
y'all.
brain is doing one frame links. Like I don't know what to tell you.
Gotcha. Understandable. All right. Well, then we will wrap it up there. I was gonna say another game I've been playing was Monster Hunter Rise, but I'm gonna talk about it later. I'm back in on that game pretty hard, actually. Uh, but we'll talk about that another time. For now, let's wrap this up. Let's get out of here. This has been a pretty good show. We lasted an hour and 20 minutes. We did it.
Oh, not bad. Not
Yeah,
bad.
yeah. I was a little worried to see how long we would last, but we made it work. We always find a way. Um, let's begin the sign offs. Drew, where can people find you? What are you doing? All that jazz.
You can find me on Twitter at JSB Totally Drew. You can probably see my whack Street Fighter 6 opinions coming up soon.
Are you gonna drop a tier list?
Nah, I have no idea where I would place a tier list. I do think like Kimberly's original costume and DJ's alt costume are awful, and the people that use them are terrible.
Fair, understandable. Uh, okay. I'm gonna ask you a question. You have to commit. All right.
Mhm.
Who is the best character in the game? Who is the worst character in the game?
Ooh.
Right now, on the record.
Hmm. Hmm. I'll choose the safe bet and say Manon is the best character in the game.
Okay. Okay. I think that's it. Yep. Very safe. Who's the worst?
Worst is potentially
Huh?
Eve.
Keith?
Yeah,
Okay. All right.
I could see it being Geef or potentially like I haven't seen enough of the characters to really say.
Well, obviously.
Everybody feels like good and has crazy stuff.
Got it. You heard it here first.
But
Keith is awful.
I'm just choosing the grappler is always the worst character. And uh whoever's like the fucking character that everybody's QQing about is the best character. So that very safe options here.
Very, very safe. Manon is broken, and Geef is the worst character ever created. That is from Drew. So make sure to tweet at him about how wrong he is, or how right he is. Since he is the expert here.
I mean, DJ might be the best character. This character's kind of nuts.
Nerf DJ.
Bro, buff DJ.
You can't be going around saying that. All right, you can't casually say DJ is the best character. You got to downplay him so that they buff him. That's how you've been around the block long enough. You know how this works.
Fair, that's fair.
Can't wait till Geef gets buffed.
I mean that's why Cammy players are starting early. Cammy's weak.
Yeah, you know it. You heard it. Awesome. Thank you for indulging me on that. You can find me on Twitter at Sanosuke, ZNOSUKE, where I'm just tweeting out my random thoughts on random things, be it anime, video games, what I'm eating, whatever comes to my mind is what I send out into the ether. You can follow us on YouTube at Jack Savage Base, and Twitter at Jack Savage Base for any of our ongoing stuff. There are some cool stuff in the works that hopefully we can start pushing out more of, but that relies on other people. So whenever people are ready to take the initiative, we'll have some cool stuff going up. But for now, you can definitely catch the GamesCast and the Anime Cast on the bi-weekly schedule. So thank you, Drew, for being here. I appreciate this time. This was very fun. I appreciate everybody that listens. Always a good time. and we're gonna get out of here and probably watch anime. So with that, see y'all next time. Bye.
No, let me not. Bye.